Okay, let's go. I started dancing around probably 5 or 6. I might have actually been younger, I'm not sure. There was a community centre near where I lived and they did dance classes, just very casual, very fun, nothing serious. So that's where I started going, I think around the age of 5 or 6, and then I had some friends when I was at school who went to a dance school near me, and so when I was 8 I started going there and taking classes. I started off with jazz and then I eventually started doing modern classes as well, and then some tap classes as well. I don't really know where my passion came from. I think I just enjoyed dance. Like, I was a kid, I didn't really think, oh, I'm gonna pursue dance, I'm gonna make it my career. Like, it was never that. I just honestly enjoyed dance so much as a kid, so that was really it. Like, there's not really anywhere that it specifically came from. For me, I only really got into choreographing more in the past probably year or so. Before that, because I was so late to deciding that I wanted to take dance seriously, I didn't really focus on choreographing and creating myself too much, just because I wanted to focus on my training and making sure that I had all the kind of skills that I needed, because I was, again, so late to deciding that I wanted to take it seriously and pursue it as a career. So I've only been doing it really the past year or so, but honestly I think my inspiration just comes from the music. Like, if I just listen to a song and think, I love this, I want to create something to it, then I just do it and let it happen naturally. I guess sometimes I get inspiration from classes as well. If I take certain people's classes and I really like how they move, then I'll probably take inspiration from that, but generally it's just the music that I listen to. If I just listen to it and think, this sounds so sick, this idea would go so well with this part, I just kind of let ideas flow like that and it just sort of happens. This is completely dependent on the choreographer, the style, the length of the choreo and how hard it is. Like, there's so many different things that play a role into how long it's going to take me to learn something. It could take me 10 or 15 minutes to learn something if it's something that I'm quite familiar with and is not too advanced. For example, if it was like a fairly simple hip-hop routine or commercial routine, they're styles that I'm very comfortable in, so I would find them a lot easier to pick up. If it was a very advanced ballet piece, that would take me a long time to learn because I'm a lot less experienced in ballet. So yeah, it honestly just depends on the style and the difficulty of the choreo. Oh, that is such a hard decision. I would probably say hip-hop, just because there's so many different styles within hip-hop. And I love how diverse it is, and I also love how accessible it is. Like, it's not like ballet where everything's got to be a specific way. I love how you can really experiment with it. But I also, like, I love commercial heels, I love jazz, I love tap. But I think if I had to pick one, I probably would go with hip-hop. This completely changes all the time now. So like, now that I'm out of full-time vocational training, this completely differs all the time. It used to be a lot. I was probably at uni 8 to 13 hours a day, and most of that time would be training in classes, and I would do extra classes in the evenings. Now it kind of just depends on the day, because it depends if I'm going to a class or not, because now that I've moved back home, there's no classes near me, so I travel back to Manchester all the time to take class, which is fine, but it is exhausting, and it also means I'm very limited to how many classes I'm able to go to. It's really hard to stick to a really solid like routine of training a certain amount of hours a day now that I'm not constantly training at uni. So some days I can do literally nothing, and other days I could do several hours of a mixture of working out, online classes, filming, and then maybe an in-person class as well. I wouldn't say strict. I think you have to be very aware of how you're fueling your body. For example, if you're going to take a class, you need to be eating some slow release carbs before you go, and you want to be eating plenty of protein afterwards to help your body and your muscles and everything recover. I don't think you have to be super strict. I think it kind of differs from person to person, kind of depends on things like your metabolism and just what you know works for you and what doesn't. But I've never really been super strict with my diet even whilst I've been training. I think just as long as you're aware of what you're consuming, you don't have to be strict with it. Like the whole time I was at uni and I was training full time, I was still eating cookies and cake and all of the like treats and stuff. Like it's fine. I think as long as you have the balance right, you can still treat yourself. You don't have to be strict, just I think you have to be smart about it. I don't really know, to be honest. I'm kind of just going with the flow at the moment. I did originally have a plan and it felt like a good plan until COVID kind of came and threw it all up in the air again. So for now, I'm just going with the flow. I've literally just signed to a new agency, so fingers crossed there'll be some opportunities to come through that. Other than that, I'm kind of just sticking with the social media stuff and keeping going with that, and also just training as much as I can, getting to classes as much as I can. I'm trying to move back to Manchester to make that a bit easier. Hopefully take a few trips down to London here and there as well, because I definitely need to get networking more, because it's so much about who you know and not what you know in this industry. So there's not really much of a plan. I'm just kind of going with it. I really believe that everything happens for a reason, so I'm just letting the universe do its thing and seeing where I end up. I still can't believe that there's that many likes on my page and the amount of people that follow me. I think it's crazy. TikTok's different now. My content doesn't seem to be shown to the same people anymore. So the sense of community's kind of been a bit lost on there, because just the changes with the algorithm and everything have just been crazy. But on Instagram in particular, there's so many people whose usernames I recognize because they followed me back like when I first started doing covers in like 2015 or 2016. Or like people message me and they're like, oh, like I followed you for 4 years, for 5 years, and I'm like, that's absolutely crazy that people have actually stuck with me for that long because they wanted to see my journey and everything, which is just, I don't know, it honestly makes me so happy. And like the lovely messages that I get from the people that follow me, even new followers, but in particular the people that have followed me for several years, it just means the world that those people are still here and still supporting me and still following along with my journey, because it's been a crazy one. Just the biggest thank you to everyone who's here, because there's so much that I've done the past few years that couldn't have happened without the people that follow me. So honestly, just the biggest thank you I could possibly give. And if I could hug everyone individually, if COVID wasn't a thing, then I would do it, honestly. I'd say if you're just doing it as a hobby, just enjoy it as much as you can, have fun with it. If you're wanting to pursue it as a career, I would definitely say versatility is key, so get into as many different styles as you can. If you can get to classes, then do that, and if you don't have access to classes, get onto platforms like CLI Studios that have a ton of different choreographers and styles that you can learn from, and at different levels as well. If you can't do something like that, then YouTube. YouTube is free and has so much knowledge on there if you look for it. There's definitely skills that I developed because I learned from YouTube for a long time. Literally just picking choreo up from videos. I found that during COVID, for example, when we were all doing Zoom classes and everything, I felt like I didn't struggle as much as some other people did with learning from videos and from Zoom and stuff, because I was just so used to it, because it's all I did for like 2 or 3 years. So yeah, definitely don't underestimate just using YouTube and stuff like that, but classes definitely make a massive difference. And just enjoy yourself. Try not to put too much pressure on yourself, which I think is hard. I think as dancers we're all perfectionists. We always want to pick out the things that we need to improve on and that we're not as good at, rather than focus on the things that we're really doing well with. So make sure that you've got the right balance of pushing yourself and making sure that you know what you need to improve in, but also acknowledge where you are in the improvements that you make, and yeah, just have fun. Massive thank you to Queen Bees for having me for this interview. I'm so honoured and excited to be part of it. I love the whole idea of this YouTube channel, so I wish you the most success, and yeah, thank you very much for having me.